is up, guys? We are live. It is Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. It's the Real Fifth Beatle. It's Mike coming at you. What's up, chat? DJ, what's up, man? Big T, evening. Auntie Oliver, sup all. Bunny, what's up, Bunny? Nice to see you on board for a late night stream rather than a late afternoon stream. Lorne, what's up, man? Ben, what's up? I'll put the link in the chat because if I can do that, I'll just sorry, invite, copy. I don't know what I'm doing now. I've just completely fucked this up. Fuck sake. What am I doing? Here we go. So if anybody wants to jump on board, they can do. I have invited a few people on board. JT and Griff, and obviously Lorne. Anybody's welcome, Lorne, especially you're welcome, because I'd love to hear your opinions on the Friday the 13th news. We'll be going into that, and we'll be going into that subsequently. Is that even a word? I'm not entirely sure. Did discuss it briefly last night, but new news has emerged. But I'm not particularly well versed in the Friday the 13th ongoing sort of lawsuit, how it's finished, how it's ended, how it's still playing out. Shit's going down. I'm no expert. Lorne is. So, Lorne, if you want to explain, I'd love you to jump on, Lorne, and explain the whole situation to me. Because I don't really know what the fuck's going on. I did a stream last night and I stated I thought it was going to be a TV show set in like the 60s or even the 50s, maybe, centering around Judith Myers. Judith Myers? What the fuck? Not Judith Myers. Sorry, Mrs. Voorhees. I've got Halloween on the brain. Centered around Mrs. Voorhees and a young Jason, if even a young Jason, maybe Jason who hasn't even been conceived of yet. But apparently things are moving forward where we can use Jason with the mask as an adult. I don't know how this is going to go. Apparently Sean Cunningham's involved with the company who are behind that. Like I say, I don't know what the hell to believe. All I know is we're getting a Crystal Lake TV show. What it's going to be? Is it going to be called Crystal Lake? Is it going to be called Friday the 13th? I have no idea. Like I say, I'm just a fanboy who doesn't really know the ins and outs of the whole complicated situation. Oh, Christian, what's up, man? And we have got Lorne on board now. So to explain the whole complicated situation, Lorne, over to you, man.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, fine, man.
I can't stay late because I was up way too early and I have to do it again. So just wanted to come on here and just, first of all, say hey to you guys, because I've been kind of missing in action for a while. But
we saw you in, all the footage from, Scarefest, that was good stuff, man.
It was a great weekend. It's funny because there's always that question mark that when you only know people virtually, will the relationship still kind of be the same when they're in person? And from the moment I pulled up to the hotel and saw Jay and Jess outside, it was completely natural. So I, of course, yelled an obscenity at him, and we got the weekend started.
So wait, how of all the guys and girls you met, like who had you met before, and who was like a first time?
Well, I met Corey from S'mores and Doors. I had met Piz, obviously. It's S'mores and Doors guys, Piz, and I think they're the only returners from the previous year because, but it was a much bigger gathering. Guys, if you're out there and you have an interest in meeting up with us, like when we figure out what we'll do next year, I mean, everyone is invited. That is serious business. That's not to say that you're going to love everyone necessarily, although I had a lot of fun with pretty much everyone.
So, come on. So you have way more versed than the whole Friday the 13th. So as far as I was aware, a few days ago, Jason Blum was going to drop something which turned out to be like a nothing burger, and then this all dropped, but I'm still completely confused as to
Jason Blum kind of was a part of the story a ways back, but he hasn't been a part of the story for a long time now. He definitely made his play to try and get part of the franchise, and he's been public about that, so I'm not speaking out of turn. But there have been some pretty hard feelings in some quarters, and he was out of the equation quite a while ago. But I think he's playing. I think he's leaning into it. I think he fully realized that people were going to think that he got Friday, and so he decided to do his Halloween makeup reveal as a tease. I was actually kind of weirded out by the whole thing because it was the night of Piz's Patreon stream, and Piz was eagerly waiting a Blum announcement, which, I had heard that he was out so long ago, and I was just baffled. So I was checking out, and I've been checking in with some people I know and being like, have I been wrong this whole time? And of course, but I had been told that right around Halloween, I didn't realize it was going to be on Halloween, there would be finally an announcement, and that did happen. In fact, of the stuff that I spoke privately with quite a few people about, really just the streaming service that it ended up on was the only thing that was not accurate. But everything else is lining up, and there's more news to come. This is not the final piece of Friday news you'll be getting in short order.
So in terms, because yesterday when I streamed, the information the information what I read online was, I was assuming it was all the terminology they were using. I kind of felt it was going towards this is going to be a prequel. It's going to be set in the 50s or the 60s or sometime before the whole events of.
Let me clear one thing up for everyone that I think is probably pretty important. This is not a prequel to the existing films.
Okay.
It is a prequel in that it's starting the story and it's telling us a chapter of the story that has not been told before, but it will lead into a new narrative. This is a relaunch. This is a reboot. It's not as if Betsy Palmer's Mrs. Voorhees is canon to what you're about to say. And I fully expect a lot of differences to the backstory. So people thinking you're just going to see, the lake get poisoned and a couple fires happen. That's not going to happen, I don't think. I think there'll be references to, but I think this is going to be a completely different story. And I think there's good legal reasons for that to be the case.
So is the whole legal situation being resolved completely, or is there still... how did they... So I always assumed that they'd never come to any sort of agreement. So,
okay, let's back up a bit, because I think depending where you came into the story from a legal standpoint, it can look, hey, Bunny Army, it can look a little bit skewed. So this didn't begin with Victor Miller or Sean Cunningham. That's the first thing that everyone needs to realize. The reversion of copyright laws was already on the books, but had not been litigated. No, it was not intended for film. It was really intended for songwriting, but it could easily be applied to film, but it had never been tried before. And that all changes with a lawyer named Mark Toberoff, who had some success with some comic book characters and getting some creators rights back that they had sold away or had been, in some cases, forced away from them. So it's not as if it's all villains on one side, right?
Is he the guy you really, really don't like?
Well, yeah.
Did you mention him in a previous? I think you mentioned his name in a previous.
So let's put it this way: This is a guy that through legal maneuvering is now a producer on the last Predator film, Prey, on the new Hellraiser film, on the last two Piranha films, on the Fantasy Island reboot, the It's Alive remake, which was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, and now the Friday the 13th series. He approaches creators, agrees to represent them in the copyright reversion, and then as part of his payment, he takes a producer credit on the resulting work. So he has back end on the resulting product. This is his business model. His website is even fairly explicit about what he does. So if you want a reason there has not been a Friday the 13th for many, many years, his name is Mark Toberoff. While they have all of us lining up behind either Victor Miller or Sean Cunningham and cheering for one side or another, a greasy lawyer in the middle has basically taken the entire genre, all the legacy characters of the genre, and tried to get his fingers in them. He also was the lawyer that got the Craven the Stay Back Nightmare on Elm Street. So he's everywhere. He is a boogeyman, a legal boogeyman for the horror genre. But anyway, at a certain point, with some side backing from a studio that desperately wanted part of the Friday the 13th, he approached Victor Miller with the idea of reverting the rights and getting a film set up where he'd have an executive producer credit. And I don't think they were anticipating Sean Cunningham fighting quite as hard, and Horror Inc. actually, because it's not just Cunningham. But of course, Cunningham lost the case, which is something that I think most of us expected that have been following the case with any kind of nuance. And that left a weird situation because the rights were very split, as you made reference to earlier. Anything that's not in the first film that came from the sequels, from the derivative works, is not owned by Victor Miller. And that includes Adult Jason, the hockey mask, all those identifying features. Certainly all the side characters later. So your Tommy Jarvises and your Ginny Blakes and all that is he has no claim to whatsoever. But anything in the original screenplay, he owns. So Camp Crystal Lake as a town, Mrs. Voorhees, he does not own the name Pamela associated with it because that did not appear in his screenplay. But he owns Mrs. Voorhees as a character. So it's a big muddled mess, right? And to get anything properly made, you almost had to bring them together. So the best information I have is that there is a two-way licensing agreement between both parties. And it is for multiple projects. So the one announced,
I've heard that as well. There's going to be it's going to be a torrent of Friday the 13th related stuff coming down.
Yep. And so some of it will be on the Miller side, if you would. Which, listen, I'm happy about Brian Fuller. That's good news. Yes, he was part of Platinum Dunes, and that's a little weird to people. But I mean, he was also part of Trick or Treat, right? So let's be serious. A24, I don't think people should take. I don't think this is not an in-house production at A24.
It seemed a strange combination. A24 combined with Friday the 13th. Seems like an odd choice. But
it's more of exploiting existing licensing as far as distribution than the production side of it. So it's like A24, it's not a negative pickup because it's being announced beforehand, and they probably do have some money in it, but it's more to use their existing contracts to get a release strategy in place for the thing. That's the other thing that's really nutty about this. Without a shared licensing agreement, any product made in America that uses any elements that Horror Inc. own would not be distributable outside of America legally. So it is still messy, and this agreement was the only way we were going to get anything that would satisfy any of the fans. But I think you will have allusions to adult Jason in the Mask in this series, if not physically on screen, like clever allusions, right? Maybe you'll see that Jason has a hockey mask in his cabin or something. They'll be able to make reference.
So in terms of going forward, I can only assume that really, if they've got everything, all the pieces together, realistically, I mean, I know you've got your strong opinions on Friday the 13th. I've got like opinions on Friday the 13th myself. But if I was a money-making man, where I would go with it, I suppose I would start off at the beginning and start off with some sort of origin story. And if I had everything at my everything to hand, like the mask, the characters, start off with an origin story and just move forward. Do you think it's going to be solely TV based, or do you think it's inevitably going to go to movies? Or
I think it will be back theatrically for one more film. After that, after you have a baker's dozen of 13 theatrically released movies, I think it probably does abandon theaters unless that 13th film is such a big success that. And listen, the bar's raised. Like when you look at even up through Jason X, like what was a success for these films because of their budget, that wouldn't be acceptable today. So to justify an ongoing franchise now, it has to be 100 million plus, box office take. That's just, has nothing to do with how much they spend on the movie. It has to do with the value of the property. So it's a premium brand. Licensing for Friday is more valuable than the actual films at this point. So, I mean, if you released a Mickey Mouse movie tomorrow, it would make a ton of money, but the merchandise that Disney would sell off that film forever would be far more valuable. It's the same concept, which makes me want to see Jason wear Mickey Mouse ears. But to answer something you said before, I have a theory, and it's not based on anything more than kind of it's based on two things, actually. It's based on something that was originally planned for the first time they tried to get a Crystal Lake television series off the ground. And it's also based on, I think, the economy of storytelling that I think Hollywood is actually very, very fond of right now. I don't think this has taken place in the 50s. I think the series will be set in the 80s, and I think they're going to conjoin. I think Jason will drown the same season that Pamela kills her first batch of teenagers.
Right. So you think he's going to drown in the 80s?
Yeah, I think he's going to drown in the 80s, and I think she's going to go on her rampage for the season. Yeah. And then if they get a second season down the road, they can do a time jump. But I think very realistically, I think there'll be some through lines then to whatever new theatricals come to, and that would be the Cunningham side of things, because that's when they will have to lean on the IPs that or the elements of IPs that he controls. And I think that's the most robust way I can describe where we're at. There's still a lot more. I don't know anything about the show itself.
I did want to briefly jump into the aspect, because I mentioned this again last night in the stream. Like Peacock apparently have got the right to show whatever comes forward, but like Peacock in the UK is just like nobody knows what Peacock even is. I don't even know if Peacock is even available in the UK. I don't know who shows like Halloween Ends and Halloween Kills. No idea who showed that movie in the UK, because I went to cinema to see the film. Like, no, but if you went up to someone in the UK and probably most of Europe and went Amazon Prime, instant recognition, Netflix, instant recognition, Peacock would be like just a look of bewilderment. So
Peacock is a hybrid streaming service, basically, because they are tied into a bunch of businesses. I think Comcast, I could be wrong, but pretty much gives it to their customers when you subscribe to Comcast. But I think you can subscribe independent of that if you just want it as a service. I think it's one of those things that the studios are going to use as a platform to make mini events. Like those properties that probably couldn't be the biggest thing in the news cycle, entertainment news cycle, the week of their release. But if they're streaming into people's houses already, it probably will be. So Halloween is actually a great example. Halloween Kills, they knew they were going to take a deep cut from the first film's earnings theatrically, and they did. But they had this other outlet for it, whereas a different company could make money, and that became a licensing agreement that was lucrative as well. Ends ended up to be a much bigger drop off than Kills. theatrically. So they're damn lucky that they did have another outlet. So I guess Friday, because it's a series, it's being designed for it rather than having to be kind of like a split issue.
I don't really want. Sorry, I don't really want to. I know you haven't got much time. I know you haven't got much time, but and I've asked this question before, but ends by box office wise wasn't great.
No.
Again, like where was the logic in this? I know you haven't seen the movie, but where was the logic in doing this? Because we're all kind of scratching our heads as to why these film companies make the decision. Like, I'll take it away from Halloween Ends because I know you've not seen Halloween Ends. I know you probably don't want to talk about it. So I'll use another example. Okay, so Barbarian dropped in the US about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and then it went to streaming a day or two before the film dropped in cinemas in the UK. Now, I went to cinema to see Barbarian because it was a film I genuinely wanted to see. I was genuinely excited for it. But it literally dropped on all the torrent sites, all the pirate sites, the day that it actually released in UK cinemas. And I just can't get my head around this whole situation now around the world. Cineworld under the threat of going bust, certainly in the UK. Like, is there no sort of like is there no do they not discuss things between themselves? Like is there no like conversation between like the cinema companies? Okay, guys, so we're dropping Barbarian, which has been a fairly successful movie in the US. We're going to wait a month to drop it in the UK, but we're also going to drop it on streaming services in the US and around the world the very day or the day before it drops in the UK in cinemas and possibly other countries. Does nobody think, right, hang on, guys, that could be an issue with box office take-ins in the UK? It just seems such a strange decision to. I can't get my head around it. It's just so weird.
So I'm going to use a bizarre analogy here, but stick with me. It'll work, I promise. In New Jersey, back in March, the government outlawed single-use bags for shopping. So your shops can no longer give you a plastic bag to take your groceries home.
Yeah, the UK is getting that way. We charge like 40 pence for like one bag.
Well, if it's a single-use bag, it still can't be sold. It has to be a reusable bag, or else it's verboten.
Yeah.
But so the thing is, like, I'm 49 years old. I have 49 years of social training and conditioning. So I can't tell you how many times I've gotten halfway up the store in the parking lot, and I have to turn around to go get my bags because I'm socially conditioned to just walk in.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a long time. It sounds like half a year is enough time to remember to bring your goddamn bags. But the truth is, things change slowly. The entertainment industry has worked off the same distribution model basically for 80 years. Home video was the biggest disruption, in the chain, but it was handled much like licensing for television was. And streaming changed that. It's a fundamental change, and the companies don't really know what success looks like. They don't know how to measure success for films anymore. They don't understand what budgets versus returns should look like anymore. And that's how you get people saying insane things like, oh, well, a film has to make 3 times its budget in order to be profitable. No one knows that. No one knows that. It depends on how the film was financially structured to begin with, and you don't have the paperwork in front of you, so don't tell me you can use any shorthand math. It doesn't work that way anymore. But the companies, do you spend more money to give more life in streaming? Because it's not about theaters anymore past the second weekend. No one really knows. Yeah, I know, Dan. I'm very excited. it's just Dan and I who care about that. So
I was going to say, I've not even heard of Satan's Slave 1, so I don't know about Satan's Slave 2, but...
Satan's Slave was a really important Indonesian import horror film in the 80s, and then it was remade a couple years ago, and a sequel is being released, which was kind of a surprise release. So me and Dan care. So I think they just don't really know, and depending on what the release schedule at cinemas look like in the UK, they probably wanted to find a place where there was kind of a dearth of horror films, or they smelled blood in the water with Halloween Ends and decided they wanted to go head to head with it.
Well,
which is what happened here with Smile. Smile was the underdog going into this month. As far as if you were to say which is going to make more money theatrically, Smile or Halloween Ends, no one would have taken Smile. Smile's at $93 million domestic take. Halloween is going to end its run under 70.
Yeah. I mean, well, Smile actually dropped about 3 weeks previous. So did Halloween Ends. I think they delayed Barbarian for the Halloween market, but they delayed it so long that they dropped it this Friday, just gone. So after the opening weekend, Halloween's done. So who's going to go and watch a scary movie? It's kind of like they should have dropped it. Maybe like the mind boggles as to how they came to the conclusion that to drop a movie 2 days before Halloween is a good idea. I just don't understand. And it's a movie with no brand recognition as well. As decent a movie as I think it is, it's not.
I had fun with it, but I also had issues with it. I mean, I think.
Oh yeah, I had issues.
I don't. I think the people who are out there saying it's refreshing. Well, it's refreshing in that it takes some big chances, but not all those chances pay off for me. So I don't know. But I think it's been an interesting year for the genre in particular, because all film has been navigating this weird landscape on this unknown country, right? Like no one knows how to release a film anymore because it's so unknowable until we figure out how streaming fits into the process, how as physical media fades, are those people turning to streaming, or are we going to get those people to go back to theaters? Are they looking for a premium experience? We don't know. But it's been an interesting year because horror has done really, really well theatrically this year.
I don't know how much longer have I got you for, Lorne? I know you got to go to bed, but
I have to be in bed by 9 because
so
if I'm getting up at 4, it's just
is that like 30? Is that 30 minutes?
It is.
Okay, and Piz is live streaming in half an hour, so it's pointless me live streaming after that anyway, because everyone's just going to migrate to Piz's channel anyway. But I just wanted to get your opinion on X and Pearl, and obviously Maxine going forward, because I know I tweeted out how I preferred X to Pearl, and I know you said in your very very I like your English sense of sarcasm.
Listen,
I know you prefer Pearl, but
I do, and I didn't expect that to be the case. So I mean, first off, I like Ty West as a filmmaker, and I do like when he goes quieter than when he goes loud, but I do like him a lot as a filmmaker in either case. And any year that we get 2 Ty West films in theaters is kind of a glorious year, right? So I like X for what it is a lot. I wish there was a few things changed about it that just annoy me. I think it's a better film than its worst moments. The barn kill is the dumbest thing. It's like one of those late 80s like crap logic kills. And I just think the film's better than that. It's trying to reflect that whole era, so that's probably why they went there. But I just think that it's a better movie than that. And I think it wanted to do things that were queasy and uncomfortable. And I know there are some parts of the fan base that did not enjoy that. I applaud it. People are like, oh, well, this is an ageist movie. Good. Because it used to be that the horror film would explore the other, the person to outcast in explicit terms. And you hissed and booed or cheered. but you came out feeling something, right? So I enjoyed that about X a lot. I went into Pearl thinking it was unnecessary, and all film is unnecessary, and sequels are doubly unnecessary probably. But I just couldn't imagine it working. Like, who cares? Like, isn't the whole point of villains that they're kind of unknowable? Isn't that what makes them scary, especially in the slasher subgenre? And then I was shocked by this film that was not a slasher film. You know, they made a legit Southern Gothic. And it's this beautiful, strange, very self-aware film, but without ever breaking the wall. And I mean, it's about the Southern Gothic as a film genre. I mean, that's why there's a theater explicitly in the film showing this, you know, and the stag films and all of that. It's kind of too ambitious for its own good, and that, of course, wins it over for me. I think Mia Goth is better in it than she is in X. And X was the challenge of playing two roles, whereas it's one role in Pearl, but it's so much depthy. I think the woman who played her mother is equally as good. So we have these two powerhouse female roles in one horror film. You know, good, well-written roles for women in Hollywood is still, unfortunately, very rare. So to see it happen in this genre and in two in one film, that's an amazing thing. I loved all the speeches, all the soliloquies. I love that film slowed down to let them happen. And that's a Ty West thing. Like, he trusts the frame. He trusts the audience. There's no need for like stupid quips that release the tension. He's comfortable in the tension. He'll live there. So I think both films are definitely worth your time. I'm not going to buy any of them until there's a box set of all three, because let's face it, that's what we all want.
The one thing I did want to ask about this sort of like franchise, this trilogy, or the first two movies going forward anyway, is obviously it was a very definite like decision by Ty West to make Mia Goth, Maxine, and also Pearl. So obviously you've got the situation where you've got to suspend disbelief slightly, because Pearl obviously in X is seen basically herself.
Yeah.
But it's a different character. So that's obviously a clear. Ty West has made an obvious decision there to make some sort of statements. I'm assuming that, you know, because
it's the Force
Pearl and Maxine are basically the same. You know, they're different people, but they're the same in terms of.
It's the Forrest Gump thing, right? So he's using one character, and in this case, it's an actress playing different characters, but this character that moves through a period of history and is the conduit to show us what happened. So if you take them in chronological order, right? Pearl is like kind of the birth of burlesque on film, right? It's the birth of the stag films. But it's also talking about America. It's talking about like the kind of the innocence of the time period. That's why we open with that glorious shot in Pearl. That's that fake Technicolor. They digitally painted the film to make it look like, you know, 1940s Technicolor. It's this gorgeous shot, and because it's like that's when things are still innocent. But as the film goes on, you can see it get grimier and grimier until that final shot. And I don't want to give away anything from the film, but that final shot looks like something out of Last House on the Left. It's just like, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's very intentional, because the character's following this arch and the innocence is gone. You know, that madness is set in. That's why an audition is a key portion of the film, right?
Yeah.
And what do they tell her they want? It's all there, right? So then X is like this girl working in a strip club. So that's already established that the you know, the porn world or the adult entertainment world exists, and she's already part of it. But she goes to this place where she ends up with this extreme version of it. And that's why, like, you know, the killer geriatrics having sex on the bed with her under it is such a powerful scene. It makes people uncomfortable, but it's an important scene because it's showing that even she has her limits on this stuff, right? No one. That's why I think Maxine could end up being an extremely, extremely interesting film, because if it goes to the next level, it could be a game changer for a certain type of cinema within horror. Now, Big T, there's not a chance in the world that she's getting nominated for anything. That I don't see the Academy or anyone else really.
One thing I didn't pick up on, I need to rewatch both films because obviously alligators live a long time. Is it meant to be the same alligator in both films?
I think it
surely
is.
not. Is it meant to be surely they don't live that long? I don't know.
I don't know how long alligators live. I live in the Northeast. There's no alligators up here except in the New York subways.
I mean, I know they live a long time, but I think that's more crocodile. I think crocodiles live longer, right?
Well, Gustav was what 20 year had a 20-year reign of eating people in Burundi. So
yeah,
if you don't know the Gustav story, check out National Geographic special about Gustav.
I think I'm vaguely aware of it. I just know that it's kind of like the decision to bring the alligator back, whether it's the same or not, it's probably not. It's probably like the son of the original alligator, but it was. I mean, X certainly that scene with the swimming, that is one of the most tense scenes I think we've seen in a long time. Just getting stalked by the alligator as they make their way towards this. Oh my god, that scene, man! You just think this is going to end badly, but nothing becomes of it. As in, they're not even aware that they were even getting stalked. I love that the way they don't make a big deal about it. It's not like Jaws where the threat is the shark. It's just they go for a swim, they get stalked by an alligator, they get out, and they're none the wiser to what even went on.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite of a jump scare, right?
Yeah, kind of.
It's a sustained moment. And when I talk about Ty West being comfortable in stillness, that's what I'm talking about. Like he's much more interested in really making you feel something than having you jump suddenly and then laugh at yourself, and that release of tension. I think there's a lot. I think that X has a few things that I would change in a heartbeat if I could. But and the scary thing is it's not even in my top 10 for the year. Either is Pearl. It's been a tremendous year, but I will say that I'm super happy that Ty West at least gave him some American films a shot at being on my list, because a lot of what came out this year, whether it's Smile or even Barbarian, which I know a lot of people like, I just felt it was all over the place, and the last 15 minutes or so, I was just rolling my eyes, but which is sad because I thought the first act was pretty damn good, but whatever. So, I mean, I think it's been a good year for international and independent horror. There's been a lot of great stuff. The theatrical stuff, I guess it's been an okay year for that, but the two Ty West films are definitely highlights.
Big T says alligators live between 30 and 50 years, so yeah, definitely not the same beast that is in X. I'm assuming if you got crocodiles in the States, that could have been a realistic proposition, because I know crocodiles live hell of a long time. But anyway, do you know what? I'm going to wrap things up because I think this has been a nice little sort of like condensed stream, just one-on-one. Wants to get your opinions on a few things, and certainly got that. And I know you've got to shoot now anyway, and it is 20-1 in the morning in the UK. So, but it's been nice having you on, man. Always a good time to talk.
Awesome. And there will be big book news coming very shortly, inside the next few days, I think.
I think I got the name. I think I called your book in a stream Bleak September instead of Bleak December. Well, I apologize. I have got them. I do own the book, but a few alcoholic drinks had been consumed that night, and I think I may have got the months mixed up.
Well, to be fair, September can be pretty bleak too.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was. It was like, I think it was in September when I did the fucking stream, so I think I just had September on the brain. But yeah, divide by 0, guys. I'm definitely going to be, and I will make because I mean, before we do wrap things up, because I'm not entirely sure about this, so you can maybe go into more detail being an author. The benefits of buying physically over buying electronically, in terms of how it benefits you, because I know you personally, so I will make, the effort to buy physically, because I'm someone now who's downsizing. I've been downsizing for the last 15 years. So, but I obviously, if I know someone personally, someone I consider a friend, I want to like basically support that person in the best way possible. And obviously, physically is better. It is better anyway. But in terms of like how it benefits you personally, just over ebooks, I mean, it's got to be.
So the first thing is, I'm grateful for anyone who buys the book or even just reads the book, however they're going to get it. Please don't torrent it, because there are a couple of my books that are on these ridiculous torrents with like 50 horror novels.
I can't understand. I could never get my head around. Sorry to interrupt, but I can understand people wanting to torrent a movie because they just want to watch a movie. It's 90 minutes of your time. We've all done. I've done it. I'm not going to make any bones about it. We've all done it. But for a book, that's a completely different scenario. You're talking about, hours and hours of your time, and physical is always going to be the best option anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. All I can say is that people bought Kindles, and I think they just like the idea of having as much on them as they could at one point. I think it's all cooled down a lot. I don't think. Well, I think that's true of film too. I think streaming has taken a lot of the sales out of torrenting. Anyway, not completely, but it's definitely, I don't know, plateaued it. But so I'm grateful for anyone who buys it in any format. My thing with physical books has always been, in 30 years, or even longer, that e-copy will be deleted off of some drive somewhere, or will be on some dead unit in a landfill. Books don't usually end up in landfills. It's a pretty rare thing. They usually get passed on. There's always a place you can drop off a book or hand off a book to a friend. So I don't make money after the first sale, right? Like if someone sells at a yard sale, I don't get part of their quarter. And that's appropriate. That's good. But I get something better, which is that I get a new set of eyes on my story and my work. And, we only have so many years on the planet, and not to get like hippy dippy sentimental, but how cool of an idea is it that 100 years after I'm dead, someone will someday still read my words? Yeah. I'll still be able to talk to people somehow. That's not immortality. I hate when people put it that way, but it is kind of an amazing thing if you think about it. So they say that after your lifetime, you have about 20 years before no one remembers you. Yeah. Which is a scary thought, but it's probably true, right?
Probably.
So when you create something, it's your only chance really to kind of buck that trend. And I think that fiction in particular might be the strongest, because the most of your voice survives as in any other form. But we don't have like really an oral storytelling tradition anymore, which would be the other way it would work. But it's pretty much books. I still think it's the most vital art. It might not be the most popular. I know it's not the most popular, but there's something really cool about the idea that people still are interested in news stories. And that's so to answer your question, I'd prefer you to buy it physically, everyone, because I like the idea of that. If you hate the book, you can pass it around. But if you loved it, you'll keep it until you die, and then someone will get it. But it's kind of the long game for me. But if you don't have the capacity to store books, if you don't have, you don't have the bookshelves, or if you're going to move in 2 months and you don't want one more thing to throw in a box, I get it. Buy it electronically. I still win then.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So yeah, so Divide by Zero. When's it out, Lorne?
We're waiting on an exact date. I anticipate, but we will have it before Thanksgiving.
Hang on. Whoa. Hang on. You're assuming I know when Thanksgiving is. I have zero idea when Thanksgiving is.
It's the final week of November.
Okay. I think Americans assume that like the rest of the world celebrates Thanksgiving. We have no idea. I know you eat turkey. That's all I know about it.
Well, you know, if you're really lucky, turducken, but so I mean, well, once I have a firm date, oh, look at that.
Yes, Dan's got the link there.
Dan is the most supportive motherfucker on the planet.
Dan's a legend, man. Dan tweets. He tweets, retweets anybody, whoever they are. He just retweets any link, anything. He's just constantly working away. He does more to promote my channel than I do. You know, he promotes people's channels more than the actual people who run the channel do themselves.
And Dan's the big one that I had met before, and I didn't mention him earlier. Yeah, because Dan was there and at Imaginarium the year before, so I've been lucky enough to be in Dan's presence twice. So, but yeah, any support you could throw my way, I appreciate it, guys. I did get into this whole streaming business with the idea of building up a community that could support each other, not just support me, but support each other in all of our things. And for 4 years, I haven't really asked you to pluck down money. But very shortly, I'm going to become that horrible telethon shill. So
anyway, it's been a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Lorne. I will wrap things up now because it just seems like a nice condensed 50-minute talk. I think we've got into the, nooks and crannies of the whole Friday the 13th thing, and I will see you. I missed Piz's Patreon stream. Unfortunately, it was a 6 a.m. start for me, and I can't be staying up till 3 a.m.
Know the feeling. Know the feeling well.
So anyway, thanks, Lorne. I'll see you sometime down the line, man.
Good to hang out with you, Mike.
All right, cheers, man. Thanks for everyone who jumped on board, guys. Thank you a lot.